see the actual canvassed return of votes is in your packet of materials with specifics in terms of total number of voters in the district, etc. Also, there's a National Community Education Day proclamation for your review. There also will be a number of personnel items on appointments, increase, decrease, and change, and return for leave of absence.
And also note we have corrected minutes from the October 25th meeting in the table file. If there's no objection, we'll add those items as we move forward through the evening. We have opportunity now for public comment, and this is a chance for members of the school district to address the board. We ask that you speak from the podium. State your name, the group you represent, if you are here speaking on behalf of the group, and we also ask that you limit your remarks to 3 minutes. Is there anybody who wishes to address the board? I think everybody's here for some other purpose, right? Okay. So we'll move on to approval of the minutes. Board members, as I mentioned, you have in the table file the corrected minutes of the regular meeting held on October 25th, 2010. Is there a motion to approve those corrected minutes? So moved. Moved by Ellen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mike. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving those minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Those minutes are approved. And we have announcements and recognitions. Dr. Richardson?
Okay, and I have several this evening. First of all, I would like to welcome Stephanie Schaubeck. Stephanie is our new Director of Business Affairs, and you'll notice tonight the table is a little more crowded than normal, and that's because I've asked both Tom and Stephanie to be at the table tonight and also in our next meeting. Stephanie comes to us from Minneapolis Public Schools, where she was the Executive Director of Finance and Business Services, and we're very, very pleased to have her here. She has 10 years of experience in school finance work and will be the one who will be responsible for the district's financial operations in addition to transportation, food service, building and grounds, and risk management. So we're very pleased to have her here. And this has worked out very nicely for us in that she's been working with Tom since November 1, which I think is going to give us the ability to have as smooth as possible transition as we move across. I know they were working busily today on enrollment projections, and in fact showed up at my door at about 5:30 tonight saying, "Don't you want to look at these exciting enrollment projections?" And I suggested tomorrow would be fine. So again, very pleased to have her on board, and hopefully board members, if you haven't had a chance to meet her at the end of the meeting, you might take that opportunity to do that personally. So welcome, Stephanie. We also have several other announcements on the docket here. First of all, Greenvale Park had its first annual dance. And you're thinking, gee, dance at the elementary building. That was last Friday, October the 29th. It was a collaboration with their dance-a-thon, which was held during school hours, where each grade level learned a dance. Students performed for parents at grade level at the activity. And then what really made this unique is when they got done, they brought the parents into the dancing. And all the parents got a chance to dance also. It was a huge success. Over 400 parents and students had a chance to participate. And that dance-a-thon raised approximately $10,300, which was outstanding. PTO co-chairs Mary Swanson and Karina Zick and the parent liaison Laura Berdahl were instrumental in facilitating this project. So congratulations on a great project at Greenvale Park. Also, Bridgewater had some excellent activities going on. Third grade students held their second annual garage sale on Thursday, November the 4th. The garage sale was a service learning project for the students, with all the proceeds going to Prairie's Edge Humane Society. The students raised over $900 with the help of all the classes at Bridgewater. Senior Larson organized this project, emphasizing math skills and public speaking as the students created their own commercials, which they shared on morning announcements. So again, congratulations. Bridgewater also raised approximately $657 for Feed My Starving Children by sending out boxes on Halloween. This will purchase approximately 3,552 meals, not 53. for those in need. And again, thanks to the Bridgewater Student Council for coordinating this effort. Also, our district band concert was held on Monday, November 1st at the high school. All the bands did an excellent job under the direction of our good professor, Dr. Roger Jenny, and Paul Beck, and Ethan Fryer, and Mary Williams. The orchestra teachers were also in attendance to help with extra details. Special thanks to our guest musician on clarinet, Dr. Yoon Chin, and I believe that's the correct pronunciation, who's an assistant professor of music at St. Olaf. Reports are he was incredible.
It was unbelievable.
The concert also was dedicated to last year's guest musician on tuba, Jeff Hodap, who has since passed away. So again, congratulations to our district musicians and their instructors who did an excellent job. Also, the fall chess tournament sponsored by the South Central Service Co-op and Mankato Community Education was held last Saturday. We'd like to congratulate the Hillman family. Jackson Hillman, who placed first in the 6th grade level competition. He also was first in the middle level competition, which was also, I believe, for 6th grade. And also Grace Hillman, who placed second in the 4th grade level competition. First grader Peter Hillman also participated in the tournament. So you bring somebody into the system, they just bring all the talent with them. So again, great and positive events going on across the system, and congratulations to all those folks involved.
Anyone else have anything to add? Can you make it to the fall play yet?
I've been mentioning fall play.
Yeah.
I didn't go yet.
I've heard good reviews.
Yeah. 12 Angry Jurors, the title. Reported to be great.
Yeah, one more weekend here, Friday, Saturday.
I did attend, and it is superb.
Good.
It is superb. Very, very thoughtful and well presented, well directed. Superb.
Everybody else? Okay. On we go. Our first item for discussion is the Arctic annual report, and we have Arctic's Director Simon Tyler here to present the 2009-2010 annual report. Welcome, Simon.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Dr. Richardson, Board Chair, Northfield School Board, thank you for inviting me in this evening to give you an overview of the Year 7 Arctic report from 2009-10. And it was interesting listening to your announcements just now that you referenced the 12 Angry Jurors, which is directed by one of our staff at Arctic, Bob Gregory Bjorkland. And we have 2 of the Angry Jurors, I think, are Arctic students. It just occurred to me.
Playing Angry Jurors.
Yeah. It just occurred to me this is perhaps just one small piece of what I think has become a healthy collaboration between our small school and the district, in that there's a back and forth of staff and students and activities that we share together, and hopefully I can give you a little bit of insight into that this evening. The actual report itself is a fairly lengthy document, so I'm just going to highlight for you what I think some of the salient points and give you an opportunity to ask me some questions at the end. The school has now completed 7 full years. We've been authorized by the district during that time. We're a small school. We serve just 126 students at our maximum capacity, and of course that's probably less than 5% of the students in middle school and high school here in the Northfield area. But I think we have become an important part of public school choice in this town. And with each passing year, like all new charter schools, we've become a little more aware of our accountability responsibilities. We improve our governance process. We are constantly reviewing our financial controls and developing and innovating our program. And I'll go through a few of those pieces tonight for you. The mission of our school is to prepare our students to transition intellectually, emotionally, and ethically to high school and future employment. As part of this process, we envision that students will express themselves artistically, use technology responsibly, creatively, and with innovation, develop critical thinking and creative problem-solving skills, construct knowledge and meaning for themselves, understand and strive for wellness of the whole person, recognize and act upon their responsibilities as local citizens within our global context, and achieve proficiency in project-based learning. A tall order, but this is how we strive to go about it. And school governance, we follow charter school law for our school board structure. We're governed by a board comprising of 9 members, 5 are parents, 3 are faculty members, and 1 is a community member. ArtTech also has a non-voting student member who serves just 1 year. We recently had our board elections, and I'm pleased to let you know we have a new board chair, Tammy Pritchard, who happens to be here tonight. We're delighted that Tammy is going to take on that role for our school, and we're particularly grateful to Joe Parr, who has served as our school board chair for the past 3 years and did a superb job for the school. This board oversees 5 committees. Part of our governing structure is to have board subcommittees which meet monthly and report back to our board throughout the year. And those committees are in the areas of facilities, finance, program, communications, and the arts. Each committee develops SMART goals for the year ahead and reports back to the school board twice through the calendar year. Each committee comprises of teachers, parents, board members, and students. Student demographics, last year, 2 a.m. reporting on, we finished with an average daily membership of just under 126, which was close to a 5% increase from the year prior to that. Interesting notes about our demographics, free and reduced lunch ran at just under 30%, about 25% of the students had IEPs, and almost 20% of the students were non-Northfield residents. Being a charter school, we do attract students from outside the Northfield area as well. I hope that enriches our community by bringing in students from communities which include Dundas, Faribault, Farmington, Lakeville, Prior Lake, Kenyon, near Strand, and Ortown. Faculty, we had a couple of notable changes in the past year to let you know about. One was the addition of a part-time role of special education coordinator for our special education team, and that role is being undertaken by Lisa Malika, who's also our school social worker. We bid farewell to one of our high school advisors who moved on to a college position in Iowa, our artist in residence, and one of our paraprofessionals. As part of the restructuring from this, we hired a new high school advisor who's also a math specialist, and that was a deliberate move as part of our math program improvements to bring the math license teacher into the high school advisory position. We also hired a part-time math teacher to teach 6th and 7th grade and a .5 visual arts teacher. Accountability. How do we track the success of our school? Obviously, in the climate we're in for charter schools, it's very important that by standardized test data, we can be clear and accountable on how our students are going. And I think this has been part of the growth of not just our school, but perhaps the charter school movement as a whole, and a recognition that this needs to be done and needs to be clear. ArtTech did obtain AWAP status for the 2010 year. That's, I believe, the first time in school history that we did successfully achieve AWAP status. In our academic goals, we had a goal to improve our proficiency in math from across the grades tested in the MCA testing format from 42.66 to 47.66%. We did meet that goal. Proficiency rates across grades 6, 7, 8, and 11 increased to 54.28%. In reading, our goal was improved proficiency from what was already a fairly high level of 77.77 to 81.77. We did not meet that goal. Proficiency rates for reading across the 4 grades tested was 75.80%, which is still above the state average in proficiency. And I think the reason for the small decline in our small school is easy for the staff to pinpoint based on who's taking those tests in which grades. It's a very small cohort of students, but we are tracking that reading data. I'll just pick out a couple of other assessment pieces for you to think about. The details are in our report. For writing 9th grade grad, we had 92% proficiency, which was an increase of 86.7% in 2008. And in science, proficiency increased from 28.6% to 48.48% in all grades tested. I'll talk a little bit more about this testing further down as part of our program challenges and changes for the year ahead. Uptake graduated 13 students. 3 students have returned as fifth-year seniors this year, and 3 of our seniors required attendance at summer school classes to meet requirements of an uptake diploma. I think that's something we're paying close attention to this year. It's in part, I think, to the expectations and the rigor we have in our high school program, but also we're reviewing as we seek sustainability and to consolidate our high school program to look at how do we serve the needs of students who enter our high school program late or midway through their high school career. And also in a project-based environment, how do we ensure that we build in the security of the core classes and seminars in the early stages of the high school program so that students don't get into credit trouble later in their high school career. We saw this with a small group of students this year, and our education program is reviewing our model. It's imperative for us that we keep the innovative and the progressive piece of the project-based learning, but what we're finding with the graduation standards and the expectations around the core subjects and the revision of some of those core areas year by year is that we're having to take a look at how we support students in the 9th and 10th grades, which inevitably for us means making sure that we have required classes in core areas so that later on in the high school career, our students can explore the project process, take their senior project, have opportunities to do PSEO, college classes, work experiences, which are more integral to our mission without fear of not having credit in key areas. And in the case of 3 students this year needing to take some school classes in order to graduate. So it's not a large group of students, but it's a programmatic piece that we're taking a close look at this year. Other data last year was the first year that we utilized the HOPE study, which is an Advisions generated study which seeks to put data on student responses to how they engage with the learning process. It measures students' attitudes to things like belongingness, autonomy around decision-making, academic press, engagement with the learning of behavioral and emotional. As the students take a survey twice a year, fall and spring, and an index is created from their responses. The research shows that students' hopefulness about their learning environment has direct correlation to how they'll do on both standardized test scores and how they'll respond in college and career situations. This is a new piece of data for us. It seems like a good fit with our mission to collect, and it's going to take a few years before we have a longitudinal piece to really start analyzing it in a truly meaningful way, I think. But just last year's data compared to Advisions averages and the traditional schools that they've administered this to do showed what we'd expected our school, which is a small relational-based model, is that our students scored high in the areas of engagement, behavioral and emotional responses to their learning environment. Obviously, this is something we'd hope for as that's part of the mission of our school to create a small multi-age advisory model where students feel comfortable. So we'll be re-administering that data this year, comparing it to last year, and starting the process of creating a longitudinal study. A few program highlights, and excuse me if I'm a little long-winded here. I realize you've got a busy agenda this evening. I'll try and keep moving. A few program highlights I'd like to bring to your attention. We continue to our tradition of May term, is where our students finish the year in a 3-week, what we call a May term, which is basically an extended project where students engage in either a half-day, 2 half-day, or 1 full-day activity for the week. 3 weeks, excuse me. Last year included an arts-based trip to New York, group students renovating a Mississippi riverboat, theater studies, creative writing, baseball, environmental education focus, sustainable living, and more. Our arts programs are key to what we do. We have an expectation that students in our high school, 2.25 of the credits are in the areas of the arts. As the name of our school would imply, this is a big piece of what we do. I think the part of the strategic focus of the school has been in difficult financial times, how do we maintain the quality of our arts program and maintain the emphasis of it? And I think that's a challenge for all schools, but particularly a small arts-based school like ours. And to that end, we did create the Arts Committee, the Arts Board Committee, to take a look at how we've been serving students in the areas of the arts and what we can do moving forward. That said, we did have some great arts events last year. Our fifth annual presentation of the Arts de Martin performance, I think, has become a community standard. The show honors Martin Luther King, and we have guests, arts performers from all over the community. We have a spring production, also directed by Bob Gregory Bjorklund each year, and he also leads a particularly short play festival at our school. We have a middle school choir which performed its second annual Earth Day concert, which last year was a collaboration with St. Olaf College, and we actually performed it up at St. Olaf last year. And one particularly enjoyable residency was a week-long collaboration with the spoken word poet Diego Vasquez, which culminated in a poetry slam, a competition at our school, which was also open to Northfield High School students, and Mr. Troy Coors helped us a little bit with that, and we had some high school students attend and join in the poetry slam. We continue our focus on experiential learning. Last year we took 9th and 11th graders to the Manitoba Wish Environmental Learning Program, and also a group of students to Wolfridge during one of the May terms. This past fall, as it says in this report, we did expand that program to include our 7th grade group. The intent is to make it sustainable to take 7th, 9th, and 11th graders to the Manitoba Wish program for a 4-day trip each year. So students are hitting that experience once every 2 years, and the program develops a different developmental leadership focus for each group at 7th, 9th, and 11th grade. It's become a real mainstay of what we do in the fall each year. ArtTech continues to be part of the QComp program. ArtTech was one of the first, I believe, it might have been the first charter school to become part of the state QComp program. It was my predecessor, Tim Goodwin, who created a model for our school in QComp. What that means for us is our QComp staff development projects are focused around a goal. In the previous few years, it's been reading. This year it's going to be math. Our staff get a small amount of compensation for developing staff development projects related to that goal. Last year, when reading was a focus, I've listed a number of things here, included things such as incorporating reading strategies into the science curriculum, or how silent reading works in the May term program experience, or organizing a poetry out loud event, all intended to improve student scores and proficiency in the reading model. Staff also, as part of our QComp program, have to go through a fairly rigorous assessment and evaluation process. They're evaluated 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring, and score from a rubric on the Danielson model on how they're doing. And staff also develop their own independent goals, SMART goals for the year related to improving their practice. I think the QComp program is a lot of work. It takes a lot of administrative time, but as long as we have the opportunity to align it with the way our school functions, I think it's quite a useful tool for us. This year, we're using our late start on Wednesdays to do the QComp-related staff development and have our team meetings. This year, we turned to a math focus, largely because, as we found last year, we kind of topped out with our reading goal, but we still have a lot of room for growth in the area of math. So after some staff strategic planning sessions, we decided to make math our focus, set a goal which has been approved by the state for improvement in the area of math. And this year we're developing what I think are some quite innovative ways to teach math in our school. And some of the more strategic pieces we've done in terms of staffing include the hiring of a high school math specialist, the hiring of a 6th and 7th grade math teacher, and a reorganization of how we do our middle school math program. I think it's one of the challenges of math in project-based, multi-age system is that the way the curriculum and the stems are structured don't lend themselves so well to some of the integrated models we can do in other curricular areas. Taking on QComp as our focus is making us question that. We have language arts teachers, for example, developing math programs on teaching formulas using the spoken word. We have collaborations between our math teacher and the science teacher on how they can create a math-focused over midterm boat project, and so on. So we're hopeful that will show up in our math results this year, but also create an engaging math learning environment for the students. A couple of the key projects which we've had success with over the past couple of years, and last year particularly. One was the Greenhouse Project. This has been a 2-year student-centered project to raise funds and construct a greenhouse for the school. It's literally just gone up in the past couple of weeks, and it's probably sitting adjacent to our building now, and the first winter vegetables, whatever they are, as the students, are in the ground. And I think that's just an example of, with a more flexible schedule and a smaller group of multi-age students, some of the learning we can do and hopefully bring awareness to in the community. It was an emergent project. It didn't have a defined timeline. The timeline on the project depended very much on how the students worked their way through the various obstacles towards constructing a building and raising the money for it. But it's open. We're very excited about it. Another one is the boat project, which involves a group of students working on a project to renovate and hopefully get on the water of Mississippi River boat. We've now had 2 May terms where students have worked on this project, and we're working with other non-profits to raise funds for this boat, and the students have a lot of learning going on in relation to it. What are our challenges and opportunities going forward? A couple of things I'd like to highlight. Facility is always a big challenge for charter schools, as you all probably are familiar with. A charter school or bids us promoting our own building, so we lease our building. As part of our strategic planning, we did spend a year having a board committee on facilities review our building options, including whether relocation was a good option for Artec. The original intent of the school was never to be that far out of town over by vendors. It was more just a need at the time at the launch of the school. After a year's review, that committee came back to board with a conclusion that where we are is the best facility we're going to find in the short term. We have a very healthy relationship with our landlord, and we're fortunate to have some space where we can do things like construct a greenhouse and have some room for students with their learning outside. The decision has been to stay where we are, look to improve the current site. We've done a couple of things within the building over the summer into this year, such as the construction of a small computer lab, and at the conclusion of the current lease we're in, which ends next summer, we are in conversation with the landlord to get a longer lease with him, and as part of that lease negotiation process, see if we can secure some funding and support to improve the building. That wouldn't improve the size of the building in terms of increasing student numbers. Our intent is to stay at the current model. Our enrollment numbers indicate that our size is a good one, and we don't have a waiting list to look beyond that right now. The intent of improving the building really is to improve the learning environment for students. With a hybrid model we've become and the need for seminars to support our middle school and high school program, we really think we need a couple of extra teaching spaces, a science lab, an extra teaching classroom, and we'd also like to do some improvements to the arts area, particularly our small black box theatre space and our art studio. So that will be a big focus for the board moving forward. I talked lot about the math, so I'm going to jump over that. I mentioned some of our challenges and objectives in meeting student graduation needs. Financially, again, like traditional school districts and charter school districts, these have been difficult times. We've been increasing the holdback from 10 to 27%, now 30%. For a school which has a small budget like ours, these are significant numbers, and the recourse to borrowing to support funding in charter schools, of course, is limited to a line of credits and support from the local bank. We continue to maintain a line of credit with our local bank. With the increase in the holdback, we had to make some pretty tough decisions to secure our financial future. We have had a pay freeze for our staff for 2 years now. We've reviewed our staffing structure. We've reviewed our internal controls and put essentially a lot of restrictions on staff spending in curricular areas. I think these were unpleasant but necessary steps in order to get the school back on a path towards building a positive fund balance, which is going to help us navigate what doesn't look like too promising a financial future, I'm afraid to say. Our unrestricted fund balance last year, according to the 2009 audit, was 11,323, which was an increase from the overall fund balance of 5,206 in the year 2008. Our preliminary audit, which we've just had, and obviously the board would get the full audit report before the end of December, but our preliminary audit for 2010 showed that we will meet our fund balance goal of increasing our bottom line by 2%, which for us is just under 32,000. So we're on track. Our goal is to increase our fund balance by 2% each year. It's not a dramatic increase. We'd like it to be more and quicker, but those are just not the times we're in. With a view to getting to a 20% fund balance by, I think, in 2016-17, which hopefully would be a sound target from which to have financial stability going forward. Part of the financial reality we're in means that we have an increased focus on grant writing and fundraising. I think that's the world all public schools are in right now. We have a finance committee that's targeting both those areas, and we have high hopes for our auction in the spring, which is going to come if you see the process right. Goals for next year, academic goals, in the area of math, that we will increase proficiency in grades 6, 7, and 8 from 62% to 66%, and for grades 11, which of course is the grad math standard, will improve from 35% to 43%. Those are QCOM goals. Our reading goal is to improve proficiency from 75.80% to 79.80%. In the areas of non-academic goals, we're a small school and volunteer help is very important to us, so we reviewed our data on volunteer support, and we've set a goal that 50% of Arctic families is represented by one or more parents or guardians will provide volunteer support at least once during the upcoming school year, and we're tracking that data. And also we set what's, I think, a more big picture goal to review our college connections as a small project-based, arts-focused school, and with the advantage I think that charter schools have been nimble in order to innovate and make changes to our curriculum. We really feel like we have an opportunity to build our connections with Olaf and Carleton. We're very fortunate to have those two colleges in this town. We have a lot of connections already. We're going to take a review of what we've done over the past few years and have our education program generate a report to our board which has strategic goals for further opportunities for developments with Olaf and Carleton to provide opportunities for students. I really think it's probably an underutilized area for us, and I think the colleges with a focus on civic engagement that seems to be at the fore of what they're doing right now, are interested in it too. So it'll be exciting to come back next year and let you know how that proceeded. That's my summary. I'd like to thank you for your patience in listening to it and welcome you all to our open house this coming Sunday from 2 to 4 p.m. If you'd like to go and see the greenhouse and talk to students and parents and have a tour of the school, you'd be most welcome to come to that. And with that, I'll take questions.
Thank you, Simon. Anybody have any questions for Simon? No.
I was just curious, you talked a lot about the arts and you talked about the math, which was great. But the technology side, you mentioned you're looking at building a computer lab. Are there other initiatives on the tech part?
That's a good question because, again, the name of our school would imply that that's kind of a big focus. Well, when the school started, the use of technology, it was a pure project-based learning school. So every single student in the school had access to a computer at their desk, and that's really how the technology infused the student learning through the project process. I think we've evolved in many ways in regard to technology from that. It's still the case that our middle school students have access to a bank of computers in their advisory and use computers for the project process. And I would say about 50% of our high school students also have a computer at their desk. But interestingly, what we're finding is that a lot of our high school students are bringing their own computers to school and are so well versed in the quick changes in technology that we as a school are sort of struggling to keep up with the students and having to take a step back and look at, well, what's our goal with technology? And really it's that it should inform the process of the learning, whether that's in a seminar or as part of a project or doing an investigation on how to write a work permit to build a greenhouse or whatever. And whether a computer is actually on a student desk or not is not necessarily relevant to that. Hence the decision to build a computer lab as a place where students can go as a cohort, do internet research, develop computer skills, do media art. We currently have 14 computers in that room for students to use. And there's also a fairly pragmatic piece too, in that with the movement of state tests over to more of a computer-based model, we just quite frankly have to have a place where we can test several students at once. We've hired a technology coordinator. We used part of our budget for this year to give a stipend to the math specialist who also has expertise in areas of technology, and as well as generating the computer lab and improving the speed of the server and the internet connection. He's also working with a strategic and education program to do some more big picture dreaming about what we can do with technology. I think we feel that we've moved away from the incorporation of the media arts into the other areas of the arts, and we'd like to integrate that. We're looking at our upcoming Arts for Martin show and other arts events as an opportunity to bring film, movie making, digital images back into other areas of the arts. And also embedded in other areas of the program, middle school students are currently embarking on the second quarter theme of exploration. The expectation for this quarter is that the project will incorporate both a PowerPoint and a movie as part of their project share. So if we can't assume students have these skills, we have to make it part of our curriculum and then provide the support to do it.
Yeah, that's great.
Anybody else got anything? No.
What is your graduation rate?
Gosh, I don't have a, well, actually, I have a percentage. No, I don't have a percentage for you. From last year, we had 13 students who graduated through Art Tech, another 3 who had to take summer school classes, and then another 3 students who've come back as fifth-year seniors. So I have a percentage for you on that. We're such a small school that our graduation rates don't show up on the school report card, so I don't have a number for you. We have graduated 94 students now over the course of the
How
school
many
history.
classified as seniors last year?
Excuse me?
How many students classified as seniors?
Going into the year, 20 students.
All right. So is that 13 of 22?
13 graduated from ITech, yeah. Because we had 3 students who had to take summer school classes, we had to unenroll them, and then they technically enroll at the ALC, not as an ArtTech student, but as an ALC student, so we couldn't count them at the end of the year as ArtTech students. 3 of the students came back as super seniors, I think is the phrase, and the 4th one of those also had extra graduation requirements but transferred to another school.
Anybody else? I'm interested in how you're using what we use as our PLC time to meet your QComp requirements. I mean, is there much collaboration or sharing of ideas? You know, some of these, reading strategies into the biocurriculum and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason we sponsor charter schools is so that there will be more innovation in the area, and I'm wondering about, opportunities to share that innovation.
Do you mean outside of ArtTech?
Well, between our tech and district schools, or
I don't think there has been. Is the honest answer to that. We use our QComp time for in-house staff development and team meetings for our own program. It's a good question. I don't think the district and neighboring schools have really come to us seeking to find out what we're doing and take that back into the district program so much. I think we'd like it if that did happen. Certainly we're not shy about coming to the district if we need questions or ideas about curriculum or administration, and the district administrators at the middle school and high school and staff that I approach and our teachers approach are really supportive. But it's not really been a two-way dialogue yet, Carrie. I don't think if that's your question, and I think that would be something would be quite easy to solve in terms of inviting staff over to see what we're doing, especially as we share the same late start now. There would be no problem if we had a focus which was relevant to staff over here at the high school or middle school to invite them into those conversations. But I don't think there has been a lot of that. Most of the collaborations have been through things like the arts, such as having our staff lead arts programs over here, and we have students who participate in athletics, and there's a back and forth around that in our music programs, but not in the core subject areas, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like there's a lot of good sort of informal collaboration. You talk about the course and the poetry slam and things like that, but it might be nice to find a way to, once a year or something, maybe formalize some of those PLC connections.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that would be talking to Dr. Richardson. Us through times we've taught, of course, the district is applying to be an authorizer again, going through that process. And you're right, that was one of the goals, that the charter schools would innovate, and that in turn would inform the process of a traditional model. I think we're in a good place to do that right now. I mean, we're entering our 8th year, and there's a sustainability that happens when we get towards that 10-year mark, where people can come in and see our program and what's been successful for us. And how we develop that, I haven't really thought through a lot. I think that would be a good conversation between authorizer and charter school moving forward. And probably a good one for Prairie Creek and the elementary schools by the same token as well. I got a call from Marnie Thompson just last week because there was an initiative during PLC time here for the YES program, which is Youth Energy Seminars. I want to say Marnie and a group of students that attended a presentation here, and she called me the next day and said, it occurs to me that this would have been a perfect opportunity for your greenhouse group to come over and be part of that conversation and share their project. And they have another meeting on November 17th during the PLC time at 7:45, and she invited ArtTech students over to that. And I think that's an example of how it's happening kind of organically, and maybe the question is how can we do it more systematically? And we haven't done that yet, I don't think.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Okay, on we go. Let's see. Okay, so we've got school improvement plans. Sibley's going first.
Yes,
Sibley.
Sibley got up first.
We actually talked about it in advance.
Okay. You didn't have to arm wrestle for it. Okay.
I think I'd use that one. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's easy there.
We joke about that on occasion. All right, then Matt turned the projector on. I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to share our progress here with from the Sibley Continuous Improvement Plan, our progress report, what's coming up next, that kind of thing. Our mission statement at Sibley is to empower the learner and build foundations, and that's something that we're always looking at when we're working with our students. I'm going to jump here. There's our mission statement. Our vision statement. Whoops, what happened there? There we go. Our vision statement. In order to achieve our mission, we work collaboratively to determine our common purpose and clear goals and seek and implement effective strategies. We monitor each student's progress, and we create and sustain a school community where we promote social skills, academic skills, and respect for differences. And all of these come into play in all of our student achievement goals and our climate goal. I have 3 goals that I'm going to be talking about tonight. Two student achievement goals, one in math, one in literacy, and then our climate goal, which is really a focus on our responsive classroom strategies and how that comes into play in our particular building. Our first student achievement goal is that all students will demonstrate measurable gains in reading fluency and comprehension. We've had this goal for several years, and it's a very good umbrella type goal, and we can build our SMART goals around this, and our PLC groups at each particular grade level or within each group can also use this as a focal point and work from it. We use 3 common tools in our building to actually measure our progress in these goals. We use the MAP test, which is the measure of academic progress, the MCA, which is the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessment, and the DRA, which is the Developmental Reading Assessment. These assessments help us measure student growth over time, and they also help us see where individuals are at and pick up their learning from that particular point and go from there. We also have some formative assessments that take place in each particular grade level, and those assessments kind of come out in the PLC process, and I refer to a few of them in the last document in your handout, and I'll get to that a bit later. For last year, our Sibley Literacy SMART goal for the building was that 85% of our 3rd grade students, 93% of our 4th grade students, and 87% of our 5th grade students will be proficient on last spring's 2010 MCA reading assessment. And when we look at SMART goals, I'll just kind of hit the rewind button quick. We're looking at something that's strategic and specific. It's measurable, attainable, results-oriented, and time-bound. Figured I better spit that out because Dr. Richardson might ask me again down the road.
It's on the quiz.
It's on the quiz, and I think that comes at the end of the presentation every year. Also, we want 13 out of 13 classrooms, and that was classrooms 2nd through 5th grade, to meet 100% or more of their classroom target growth score. And I'll give you an example of what that is. If we have a 4th grader, for example, that has a MAP score of 210, and they have a target score of 220, we're looking at a 10-point gain over the course of the school year. If that student has a 5-point gain, they have they've met 50% of their target growth. If they get a 10-point gain, they've met 100% of their target growth. If they have a 15-point gain, they've met 150%. What we do is we take that and average all of the scores out from a classroom and come up with a target growth score for that particular classroom. So it is pretty typical at times to see scores that range from 120% to 160%, but there are times when we do see target growth scores that don't hit 100%. I'm going to look at Roger real quick. Was that a decent explanation of that? And Roger, what would you say is average?
In this district,
Mm-hmm.
probably about 120%.
Okay. And it's, and I've seen as high as maybe 170, so it does happen where we have some real significant growth scores. The second one there is that 65% of our students will meet their individual target growth. So that's the percent of students that actually, if they have a score of 210 in the fall, in the spring, they meet that 220 mark if their growth if their growth score is 10 points. So we're looking at 65%. A few years ago, we had a 70% target growth score for individuals, and Dr. Jenny told me that was shooting pretty high at that particular time. So we did lower it, and I'll show you kind of where we ended up here in a few minutes. The Sibley action steps, and I apologize for the small print, but we did a number of things to get to this point.
And it's even minor here.
Yeah, it's even finer there. But it is in the plan. We continue to practice our Reader's Workshop model, which is part of the balanced literacy approach to really differentiate the instruction for all of our students. We included a block of time for independent reading during the Reader's Workshop and focusing on books at their level. And we've been doing some work with Mary Haney, an educational consultant, and what she's telling us that really rings true, but it actually puts a number of minutes to what students need to do in order to be successful down the road. She says that for every 20 minutes of reading that a student spends per day over the course of a year, for every 20 minutes they spend reading at their independent level, you're going to see a year's worth of growth. So if they read 40 minutes per day at their independent level, you should see 2 years worth of growth. So that's something that we're really focusing in on. And really, I didn't know where I was going to bring this out in the presentation, but now is a good time. If I wasn't here right now, I'd be at a basketball practice. And when I coach basketball, you teach a student how to do something. You teach a player how to do something. We might be teaching them how to shoot a free throw. And for example, we have what we call beef in basketball, which is if you're going to shoot, you have balance, which is the B. You have your eyes on the target, which is the E. You have your elbow in, which is the second E, and you follow through. And if we continued to teach that to students, to basketball players, yet we never gave them an opportunity to shoot, we wouldn't be doing them justice. And when I think about some of our students who are maybe struggling a bit more than others in literacy, and they're in their classroom for their mini lesson. They're in the classroom maybe just for the mini lesson or for the large group instruction, and then they leave the classroom and they go to a special ed classroom and they're instructed again. And then the same student may be an English language learner and they might leave again for further instruction down the road. The question comes up, when do they get to practice what they're being taught? So what we're doing is, what we found is that we need to reorganize as a building how we're doing things and how we are, when we're teaching, who we're teaching, and what you see some of our classroom teachers now do is they used to spend the first part of their literacy block working on the mini lesson or the large group instruction piece of the lit block, and then the students who are receiving special ed services or maybe ESL services would leave the classroom. They're starting to shift their independent reading time to the front of that block to give all of our students time to actually read at their independent level. And the key is having this large quantity of books that students actually carry around in a bag or a bin or whatever that are leveled books for them. And it's okay, to have Harry Potter books or whatever in that bin, even if they're not at that particular level. But when they're reading independently, they need to have books at their level in order to make that progress. So I apologize for the segue there, but I knew it was going to come out sometime. I just didn't know when. And then what we did last year is we created a push-in model of teaching support for our at-risk or low readers. And that's where we pushed in ESL services at times. We pushed in special ed services at times. We provided release time for teachers to go observe other classrooms in the district. We continue to to work with Becky Gainey, our literacy coach, on effective strategies, both in reading and in writing. And then we implemented the weekly PLC last year, and that has just been transformational for us as a building. So our results from last year is that we had 81% of our third grade students who were proficient. 87% of our fourth grade students were proficient, and 82% of our fifth grade students were proficient on the spring MCA reading assessment. We didn't meet our goal at all as far as the 3 grade levels, but we're shooting high. I mean, we're really trying to push to get our students at that, to get all of our students at that proficiency level. At the same time, we know that isn't always realistic. And then here's the target growth score. 64.4% of our students in grades 2 through 5 met or exceeded their individual target growth score. So we're right at that Dr. Jenny recommendation of 65% for last year in the individual target growth. And then all 13 of the classrooms in grades 2 through 5 actually met the goal on the reading portion as far as the classroom target growth score. Our student achievement goal for this year, and I'm just going to roll, I'm going to keep with the literacy theme here, is the same. And we've set targets of 80 for third grade, 83 for fourth, 90 for fifth. And what we did is we not only looked at our students from last year, but we also looked at our students that came into the building this year. And we have several students. We have about 80 new students to the building. Some came from Bridgewater, and some came from other districts. And we looked at that to set these particular target scores. We're looking at all 15 of our second through fifth grade classrooms who will meet the 100% or more of the classroom target growth on the spring 2011 math test. And then again, 65% of our students meeting their individual growth targets. And I'm really thinking that this is going to change, because what we're doing is we're actually talking to our students this year about the target growth score. And that's not something that we've typically done. Students go in, they take their math test in the fall, they take their math test in the winter, they take their math test in the spring, but we haven't really talked to them about target scores. And we're not focusing, real heavy on the score itself, but this is your target. So they actually have something that they're shooting for, and that there's some stake in it for them. So they're not just going to the lab and kind of going through the motions. Our action plan to address the goal is to identify students performing below grade level. We used, again, the spring MCA from last spring, this fall's MAP, and our classroom DRA. Again, continue with the Reader's Workshop model, provide release time, continue to provide information using data and conferences to inform instruction. We participate in data retreats with Mary Haney, and we were fortunate enough to get some time with Mary this year, who actually Dave shared her last year for about 2 hours one day, and it was really a good thing for our staff. And Mary's been to Sibley twice this year already, and staff really appreciate the fact that they're getting a chance to work with an ed consultant. And Dr. Jenny has also attended some of those sessions, and we appreciate his knowledge when it comes to data. And he's been extremely supportive and helpful as we're looking at all of the data we have at our fingertips through Viewpoint. We also want to maintain our PLC work with a focus on the students that we have in the classroom right now. And I think this is something that's new this year, is that really creating the flex grouping opportunities at all grades to meet the specific needs of the students. And I'm going to share more about that in just a couple minutes, but I have some examples that are part of your handouts that I'll share. Our second student achievement goal is in the math area, and this was a brand new goal for us last year. So when we set our target scores, we were not really shooting from the hip, but we didn't have a whole lot that we were going from as far as previous work in this area. And last year we had these particular goals: 80% of third grade, 93% of fourth, and 80% of fifth grade students would be proficient in the 2010 MCA math. Again, 13 of 13 classrooms will meet the 100% classroom target growth score, and 65% of our students will meet their individual targets. And we haven't done, up until this past year, we hadn't done much of any staff development in the area of math. All of our staff development was done in the area of literacy. So our Sibley Action Plan from last year, we continue to utilize the things that supplement our spiral curriculum, like Math, Facts, and Flash, and Rocket Math. We include, last year we basically mandated the 60 minutes of a math block within each particular classroom. And then teachers identified students performing below grade level on the MCA and from spring of 2009 and the fall math from last fall. And then again, the PLC was a time to really focus on this and take a look at it. And what you see is that 81% of our third grade students, 89% of our fourth grade students, and 75% of our fifth grade students were proficient on the MCA. So we had our third graders who actually met our goal of 80%, our fourth graders who were just shy of that lofty 93%, and our fifth graders who were at 75% from last year. We had 11 of the 13 classrooms met their target growth score from last year. And again, our goal was 13 out of 13, so we didn't quite hit that. But 74% of the students in grades 2 through 5 met or exceeded their individual target growth score on the map. So that's something that really kind of jumped out at us. You know, how we could have, if I go back one, we could have 11 of 13 classrooms meet the target growth score, but then 74% of the individual students meet their target growth score. That's not something that we would, in my opinion, typically see. We might see a lower score here and you know, a higher score in reading when you have all of those particular classrooms meet their target growth scores. But our SMART goal for this year is the same. These are our targets: 80% of third grade, 83% of fourth, and 90% of fifth grade. And again, we're adjusting this based off of the students that we have right now in our building, which you know, it includes students that are new to the building. And all 15 of our classrooms are going to hit that 100% target growth score, and then 65% again we'll look at that individual target score, hitting their individual target score. And you know, you might ask, why 65 when you had 74 this past year? And we just don't know, you know, how that all played out. We just figured we would go with the 65. It's a goal we've had the last couple of years. This action plan, we're going to continue the use of Math, Facts, and a Flash, Rocket Math, continue to analyze data, identify students performing below grade level. And then I'd like to thank Nancy and Dave for doing the heavy lifting on this, but we have Dr. Clarkson from the U of M coming in to do a math workshop on January 17th during one of our staff development days. We're going to maintain our PLC work, again with the focus on the students that we have in the classroom right now, and then create flex grouping opportunities at all grades to meet the specific needs. And again, we're not just focusing on the students that are at risk. We're focusing on the needs of every single student in every grade level. We're looking at all 4 quartiles, and we've tossed away the word remedial, and we're looking at acceleration for all, no matter where students are at. Now this is our collective commitments, and typically I would show this at the beginning of the presentation, but when I go through and read, you know, our goals, we wrote these about 3 years ago, but to function as a professional learning community, the Sibley staff is committed to the following 4 values: promote a positive school climate, collaborate with one another, create partnerships with parents and community, align to the Northfield curriculum, utilize a variety of instructional strategies, and use assessment data to guide and inform our instruction, and also to engage in meaningful job-related staff development to enhance professional skills. And the reason I put this here is because the next part of this has to do with our PLCs and our flex grouping time. And all of these collective commitments come out at every PLC meeting, during everything that we do. And this is something when I look at what's happening right now with this block scheduling that we have and the flex grouping, it all goes back to the proposal that we pitched last year, that you guys approved in regard to the specialist proposal regarding supervision, where we added some specialist time, and we were able to create these block schedules where if I'm a fifth grade teacher, all of my fifth grade colleagues have a preparation time at the same time, which it's great. It's great to have that, but at the same time, we can all teach literacy at the same time. We can teach math at the same time. We can flex group together. So all of this comes into play, really because of what we were able to do with aligning those schedules. And some examples I have here, our kindergarten has a literacy focus. We have 2 half-day kindergarten classes, one morning, one afternoon, and then 2 full-day kindergarten classes. And if you've been in a kindergarten classroom in the last couple of years, you know that transitions can be rather difficult. And our kindergarten teachers are really it's the only grade at Sibley that isn't flex grouping right now. And I think that's okay. I mean, they're doing station work and doing things that actually are extremely meaningful for each student. They're differentiating instruction to meet the needs of all of those students. So that's the only group that isn't flex grouping. Our grade 1 students are flex grouping with a literacy focus right now. Our grade 2 students have a math and a literacy focus, so they're actually doing math Mondays and Tuesdays, or I think it's reading Mondays and Tuesdays and math on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and those are 45-minute sessions. Our grade 3 started in math, and now they've moved to math and literacy. Our grade 4 has a literacy focus right now, and our grade 5 they started off with math, then they went to literacy. I mean, they did 6 weeks of math, then they're going to do 6 weeks of literacy, and then they're going to go back to math again. And there are some really good examples of what's happening in PLCs on the last page of your handout. So you don't have to really read through that right now. You can if you want, but it's one of those things I thought it's something you can take with you and really see what's going on in regard to the PLCs at Sibley. So, and on that last page, there is also, that's a front and back copy. So there are 2 grade levels on the front, 1 grade level on the back. Our climate goal is to educate students, teachers, and support staff in ways to create and sustain a school community that is safe, creates a sense of trust, helps students focus on and understand the need for social skills, academic skills, and respect for differences. What we wanted to do is reduce our discipline incidents by 10%. That includes bullying, teasing, harassing behavior, when compared to the Fix-It Plan data from the year before. What we did last year is we completed the training of all of our new classroom teachers in Responsive Classroom 1. And we've had a pretty significant turnover the last 3-4 years with teachers retiring and whatnot. So this has really been where all of our staff development dollars go. The training that teachers take in Responsive Classroom 1 is 1 week long. It's during the summer. It's usually, somewhere in the southern metro is where we've had our teachers go. But they all come back and they say that's the best staff development I've had. And it's a great way to jumpstart a school year, if they go in late July, early August. We held a kindness retreat for 4th and 5th graders last year through Youth Frontiers. We continue the DARE program in 5th grade. We continue to review discipline and attendance records monthly. And I have Jane Ehlers, who is our school nurse, and Noreen Cooney, who is our social worker, and we take a look every month at attendance records and stay up to date on that because we need students to be in school. And it's not just attendance, it's, I would say a bigger thorn in the side is students showing up late for school. It's the tardies that we work on and try to help families get in the habit of being at school on time. And then also we maintain a school-wide discipline plan that everybody buys into. Our results, our discipline incidents actually went up last year slightly. We had a few more students in the building. We also have a higher awareness level as far as bullying and harassment and those kinds of things. And I tell teachers that, every time a student is sent to me for something, I do make a phone call home. And it's one of those things where I talk to students all day, could be in the hallway, could be in the classroom, but if they come to me, to my office, it's documented, phone call home, those kind of things. So I take a look at all of that, and I think there is maybe a higher awareness level, but, we're looking at, when I look at records from the past, our bullying and harassment issues have gone significantly down from when we started tracking this, back in 2005, 2006. So our goals for this upcoming year, continue to reduce discipline incidents every year. In completing a spring survey, it's a parent survey, 80% of our students and parents will agree or strongly agree that students show respect for other students, and that's something we're always continuing to ratchet up. In completing the spring survey, 90% of the staff will agree or strongly agree that the morale is high on the part of everyone who's there. I also took a look at, Nancy and I shared our plans back and forth, and they have some, and you'll hear about this, and I'm not going to steal any of your thunder, but they have some really cool things that they've implemented into their plan, and I think we might put some of those into our SMART goal as well as we move forward. Action plan to address the goal. We want to train our special ed teachers and our specialist teachers in Responsive Classroom 1. There's specific training for all of those folks too. We just haven't had the money to do that each year, so we're looking to do that when we can. Conduct that spring climate survey. Continue to review discipline records, attendance records. We want to revive the building mentor-mentee program, and what we do is we have adults in the building silently mentor students. So I will ask every classroom teacher to give me 3 or 4 names of students, and then I'll invite all of our staff members to participate if they want to, and for the most part, I think everybody does. And they are basically silent mentors, where they check in with the students a couple times a week that are on this list, that are on their list, which they might have 1 or 2, and make sure that they're another adult in their lives. And it kind of goes back to what we talked about at the board several years ago, and I think Marty Thompson kind of led the effort through going through and checking off, how many adults do we have in each of our high schoolers' lives, middle schoolers' lives, and elementary schoolers' lives. We did a 5th grade kindness retreat already this fall, and then we're going to continue with that DARE program this winter. And I apologize for cruising through. Simon has a much more pleasurable voice than I do to listen to, but if you have any questions, I am more than willing to try to answer those now.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
Anybody have questions?
Mine's really quick. I'm thinking that the numbers are different in the PowerPoint than in what we have, and so I'm hoping, and I actually had a question on what we had, so I'm thinking that the PowerPoint answers it. But you had in the math 80, 83, and 90% for this year? So that, because we have different numbers in our...
Yeah, I'll take a look at that and see if that's something that needs to be fixed.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks.
Julie? I was really interested in hearing about the flex groupings and how those are working, because it just seemed, when we talked about it last year, that it was going to be really exciting and innovative. And 2 questions. How often do the flex groupings change in terms of how the students are grouped together?
Mm-hmm.
And then secondly, have there been any challenges in implementing flex time, or has it seemed to work pretty well?
Okay. First thing is, when you create a document that's a living document, it can change, and that's kind of how we look at these flex groups. They are living groups. There are students who revolve in and revolve out, and it's students who are maybe fringe students, where teachers are maybe thinking, well, they belong in this group for part of the time, they might belong in this group for part of the time, and those might be the students that you see moving back and forth. But what we're looking at, an example of this, is that the groups change because the goals change. Our 3rd grade teachers had a very specific goal that focused on the algebra substrand of math. And they were spending 40 minutes per day, 4 days a week, on that algebra substrand. And what they found is that students were mastering that particular information. So they regrouped and they thought, here we go. I mean, we've gotten to where we need to get to with that. So the group changes entirely. They changed their focus. So I think that's where you're going to see a lot of the changes occurring in regard to flex grouping. And then the second part of your the second question kind of revolves around that whole piece. The difficulty of flex grouping happens when things change so much, when you change from one particular subject to another. It is somewhat difficult to put students in perfect groups. What we found in some grades is that third grade eventually moved to a literacy goal for the next 6 to 8 weeks, and they were struggling with one teacher with 20 students who were in that lowest quartile. And they had about 70 some students, almost 80 students in the upper 3 quartiles. So we were chatting about that, and I said, have you ever thought about 2 teachers teaching that, team teaching that lowest quartile? Well, they looked at their numbers. They split the upper 3 quartiles into 2 groups, I think of 37 or 38, and they put 2 teachers into that lower quartile group of 20, and it actually is working out quite well. So there are challenges that go into the flex grouping, and I think that the time that our teachers have within the PLC help them, monitor and adjust what they're doing. I think the other piece or the other time they have is their common prep time, 4 days a week, which allows them to communicate about flex groups and everything else. And we actually spent about an hour and a half today focusing on flex groups and what needs to be done with each flex group, because it's new. It's something that we haven't done before, and yes, it is, students are being grouped by ability, but at the same time, there is that revolve in and revolve out kind of plan, so students aren't stuck in a group. And I think when we think about if we were educated in a time when there was ability grouping, if you were locked in somewhere, you were locked in, and you weren't moving out of it. And we're quite aware of that, and we're trying to avoid that at all costs.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Anything? I want to make sure I understand the answer. So the students go into are they grouped for a period of 6 weeks, or during that 6-week time might they change groups?
It really depends. It depends on student mastery. I mean, we're giving assessments, formative assessments, and inform what we're doing. And if a student has mastered a particular concept, they might move up to another group. If they haven't, they will stay where they're at. And we're trying to get better at intervention strategies as well, so we can document what interventions we've done with students as we move on, because we also, if we document our progress, it makes our student support team efforts, if we're looking at some sort of assessment for qualification in special ed, it makes that much easier. So it really depends. Some of our groups will probably focus on, have 2 days of reading instruction and 2 days of math instruction in their flex groups throughout the course of the year, all year long. And it'll be more fluid. You won't see a 6-week segment here and a 6-week segment there. The experts tell us that the best thing to do with flex groups where you're meeting twice a week, for each group, is to have those 2 days back to back. Like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, versus a Monday, Wednesday math and a Tuesday, Thursday literacy.
Okay.
So we're trying to implement it that way as well. So it's a process, and it's evolving.
Yeah. And I'm assuming principals are talking to each other about what's working for how you're doing your flex grouping and that kind of thing?
We're at that point right now where we're still early in the school year. And last year, when we came here and we presented, you asked, our PLCs talking to other PLCs in other buildings. And one thing we did last year, I think it was last January maybe, is we all were together here in the high school cafeteria, and grade levels came together and shared their PLC goals. So I'm assuming we will do that again. We just haven't found that particular place and time to do that just yet. And really that conversation is, we've talked about it as principals, but that conversation really needs to happen with the teachers who are doing it and implementing that.
Okay. Anyone else? Mike?
Since you're here, how's it going with the addition and the new kids in?
It's going extremely well. Extremely well. It, there's that, I won't call it a learning curve, but it's more of getting acclimated kind of curve, and that was, that transition time can be tough. But we did some things on the front end last year where we tried to lay that foundational work, and Nancy was great in helping out with those students who were coming over in the compañeros, and communicated with families about how we were going to do this. And if you recall, what we did is we had students come over from Bridgewater, and we gave them a tour during the day. I had some 4th and 5th grade tour guides, and then later that night, the students who were coming over from Bridgewater came in and gave their parents a tour of the building, and they served as tour guides. And I tell you, that relieved a lot of anxiety, maybe more so for the parents than the students, but it really is going quite well. And we also brought in the low incidence program from Greenville Park, and that has gone very well too. I mean, when you look at the facility that the program is in right now, it is extremely nice. It's set up, with handicap accessible bathrooms in the classroom, an OT room across the hall, a nurse across the hall, because we have, medically fragile students there. So there are a lot of good things that went into that. I mean, a lot of planning on the front end, but when we get the students there, we're seeing good things happening throughout. So the other thing is we have an art room now, which is really nice. After having art on the cart for a few years, and we've added a lot of staff, we've added a lot of students, and everything is going quite well. So thanks for asking.
Great.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Okay, Nancy and Bridgewater.
Okay, basically we're going to share our plan with you. You'll see a lot of similarities between Bridgewater and Sibley. Again, it's because we do collaborate a lot on the things that we do. Our mission statement, again, is the same as our new mission statement for the district, empowering the learner, building foundations. And a lot of what we do at the elementary level is building those foundations with the students and with parents, and making sure that the kids know that they are free to succeed, and we'll help build their wings for them. Our vision statement is the same as we've always had, using our professional learning communities, and we agreed that we're going to work together to achieve our building goals, research and implement best practices, monitor the progress of each of the students, and reinforce their social skills and respect for all. We are going to share our 2 student achievement goals, one in math and one reading, and then our climate goal. And to share our math goal is Brent, and reading goal will be Connie tonight.
Okay, so last year's SMART goals were that all classrooms would meet 100% or more on the classroom target growths, and that all subgroups would meet AYP standards for the MCA in the spring for grades 3 through 5. In our top 3 grades, we had above 86% proficiency rates on the MCA2 in the assessment on last April. So all subgroups did meet AYP based on the math MCA score, and 16 out of 16 classrooms met 100% or more of their classroom target growth. A couple things to point out in this is, out of the 18 classrooms, you could say that 15 of us are math specialists, that we teach math to 2 sections. And I think that that is a huge benefit to those students. We get to delve into our topic area, and we get to be the masters of math, as well as then our co-partner gets to be the master of reading language arts. And I think that that's something to take into consideration and to note that of that, I think that one of the reasons we have that much growth is because we have specialists in a way in that area where we can focus in on that. Individual target growths normally go between 5 and 9 points, depending on what their fall MAP score is. And as Roger was pulling up some numbers, about 64% of our students had a typical gain of 13 points or higher. Again, I think it's a benefit to be that departmentalized within our math curriculum. Next year's goals are the same as they were last year, that all classrooms would meet 100% in their growth target and that all subgroups would meet their AYP. I think there's one thing to remember about that is that it's a snapshot on one day of one assessment or two assessments. It's hard as an elementary teacher to put all our eggs into one basket and say, yes, they are making it, or no, they're not. It is a snapshot on that day. We don't know what they came to us with. We don't know what the conversation was on the bus. We don't know what the breakfast level was at. We don't know what happened at home the night before. And so I think it's just something to, again, keep in mind. Here is a graph that shows those exceeds, meets, partially met, and does not meet. And it's an interesting pie graph that nearly 90% meet or exceed in the third grade level for our math basic standards and our MCA score. In the fourth grade, again, we have nearly 90% or 87% of our students meeting or exceeding their MCA scores. And in the fifth grade, again, nearly 90% meeting or exceeding. Now, again, being a kid of the 80s, it's kind of cool to look at it and see the Pac-Man of those students who are meeting or exceeding grade level expectations on the MCA. And I think that a majority of our staff in these third, fourth, and fifth grade levels are kids of the 80s. And our teachers then take that, and not only do our students shrink that small piece of the pie, but our students are embracing that and taking a bite out of that small 10% to 15% who aren't meeting standards. And we keep whittling that down every year. How do we whittle? Through our action plan. Our data retreats have been hugely beneficial. It allows those collaborative teachers who do departmentalize a chance to see the pluses on both sides of both reading and math, and we can get a better understanding of them. And again, being able to use Roger's data to help drive some of those just conversations. In our fifth grade, and Connie will talk more about the literacy, but in my fifth grade team, we do have a group who is flex grouping literacy. And it's a benefit, like Connie can probably talk more about it. But to have that conversation during our grade level times, which are every other week in our school, to talk about what they're doing and how they're setting up to flex group. And it is on a rotating basis. Math-wise, in the flex grouping in fourth grade is flex grouping both math and reading, and talking to Adam Danielson today, fourth grade teacher, he said it's one of the best things that they've done. And they are flex grouping on a unit basis. So they have pre-test of a unit in math, depending on how those scores stack out on the proficient standards or the expected test items, then they'll flex group. And they have 4 teachers working on that. Highlight number 5, looking into math training. I had the luxury of having Dr. Lisa Clarkson teach one of my master's classes 8 years ago. And last spring, I also had the opportunity to take a staff development from her that our middle school PLC was putting on. And it, again, was a great joy to come and listen to the ideas that she shares on how to give all students a math tool bag so that they can be successful. And I'm glad that we have taken the opportunity and really worked at trying to get her involved for all our teachers. In number 7, testing kids where they are or who they are with math being tested online this year via the computer. We found in our data retreat that it was important that those kids who have their math instruction with a specific teacher try and take the math test with that teacher. It was interesting looking at data where following IEPs, some students had to test in smaller groups, but with those smaller groups, they also had to test with a person that they were unfamiliar with. And they were not as successful as a group when they tested out of their environment and with an instructor that they weren't familiar with. And so we've looked at ideas within my lateral PLC of how can we do that. Maybe it's starting once a week that we just talk about where are these kids going to go, and once a week doing some math games with all those who are involved so that those kids become familiar with it. Having the test be on the computer and now having a computer lab at Bridgewater, the opportunity for me to possibly test my two groups of students, because we will be able to set up that schedule, may also be a huge benefit. So it may not be as much of that individual students going in, but yet being able to meet the small group needs or the quieter environment needs. We don't know yet. We'll have to play with that. And then number 10, the flexible grouping, which I talked about before. The fourth grade is really grabbing hold of. So that's me.
Hi, I'm Connie Nelson. I'm a part-time literacy coach and part-time fifth grade teacher at Bridgewater. And I'm going to speak to you about the literacy piece. I want to thank Scott for injecting all the prior knowledge of terminology that you're going to see much of the same in our presentation too. So he saved me a lot of words tonight. Our student achievement goal is actually the same as Sibley's. All students will demonstrate measurable gains in reading fluency and comprehension. And we've had the same goal for several years. Okay, our reading SMART goals for the last year was that all subgroups would meet AYP standards based on the reading MCA in grades 3 through 5, and all classrooms will meet 100% or more of the classroom target growth scores on the spring 2010 reading map. And here are our results. As you can see, 83% of third grade students were proficient, 82% of the fourth grade students were proficient, and 91% of the fifth grade students were proficient. I believe all those exceed the state averages, and we felt very good about that. All but one subgroup met AYP based on the reading MCA, and 16 of 18 of our classrooms met 100% or more of the classroom target growth scores. So we did not meet our goal. For 2010-2011, we actually have the same goals. And here's some pie graphs showing the data from last year's MCA results. And as you can see, third grade was 83% proficient. They either exceeded or met on the MCA 2. Fourth grade, very similar. We had 82% that were proficient. And here's our fifth grade, where we had 91% proficient, and actually just had one student in fifth grade who did not meet. And this is where I guess I'd like to spend a little bit more time talking about our action plan. We put a lot of time and thought into these, and I think number one, we put number one for a reason. We really want to continue to focus on our reading data at our grade level PLCs and our data retreats. I want to just talk about the PLCs for a few minutes. I have to say that Wednesday mornings is probably the highlight of my week. It's a chance to not only work with my colleagues, but we laugh, we pour over data, we talk about successes we've had, and we talk about what we can do to help certain children. This is also the time that we take a look at our flex grouping that we do, and we see are there certain children that we can shift. Sometimes it might be just one shift. I'll take a student at 9:30 instead of 10 o'clock because his needs are better met with a group at 9:30. It's interesting in all my years of teaching how now we hone in so much on specific data with students. You know, for years we've always kept the grade book and we've always recorded summative assessments. And we did a pretty good job of that, we thought, but it's nothing compared to what we're doing now. And I think we know children 10 times better than we've ever known them. And as a parent of one of my former students, I'm sorry to say that, but I think it's a good thing. We really can pretty much answer most questions about where students' needs are. Data retreats, every grade level was offered either a half day or a full day data retreat where we got together. Roger was there. We once again poured over data. We went to all different accesses on Viewpoint and printed out some sheets that we'll be giving to parents at conference time that we think will be very helpful. Number two, here again, something that's ongoing, monitoring and adjusting for underachieving students. Interventions is key, and we now have access to lots of resources on interventions. The Reader's Workshop model, which Scott talked about, consists of the mini lesson and the independent reading time when teachers are meeting with guided reading groups. And then we also have what we call a share time, where we come back together and share what we've learned and reinforce what the objective was for that lesson. Writer's Workshop model follows the same 3 steps. We're really trying to incorporate daily writing and help make that be an emphasis this year. We're having staff development focused on writing for the first 4 months this year. And that takes place at 1 staff meeting per month. Nonfiction materials, we just feel it's so important to incorporate nonfiction teaching because this is how our children get background knowledge for the content areas. Continue to emphasize literacy and parent communications. Number 7, our primary teachers are engaged in SMART, but it's not the same acronym as the SMART goal. I'm not even going to try to tell you what that one is, but Nancy does know that one. It's similar to brain gym activities, where primary students are learning words and spelling words through beanbags and hopping and jumping and bouncing and activating all parts of their brain while they're learning. Homework help is something we found was very helpful last year. We had a woman who came in every morning before school, and any child was welcome to go there and get help with their homework. Fortunately, we're able to continue that this year, and we also have a person who's there every morning from 7:30 till bell time at 8:20. Ames Web is just another way that we're going to monitor progress of our students, and several of our grade levels will be piloting this year. And then flexible grouping. You've been hearing that tossed around quite a bit, and we're not using this at all grade levels yet. We are using it at grades 1, 4, and 5. And in grades 1 and 5, we're doing it with literacy, and in grades 4, they're attempting both literacy and math this year. And yes, it does have challenges. In the long run, I think the advantages are going to outweigh the disadvantages. Scheduling is probably one of the biggest challenges. One of the ideas is you want to pour as many resources as you can into those lower end children. So we try to get our title people and our ELL people so that they're free to go help the lower quadrant or the lower, however many students it is that really need that extra support. First grade is really working through that a lot. And I just talked to a couple teachers today, and they're feeling like it's very positive. They're seeing excellent gains so far. The hardship is having too many kids in that lower end sometimes. And I think we'll turn it over to Nancy for the climate goal.
And just to speak to the PLCs for just a moment, when we started PLCs, it was like pushing that boulder uphill. And this year's been the first time that I can barely get down the hallway. I can't get to all the classrooms because I have teachers that come out into the hallway and say, "You got to come see what this idea we're working on. You got to come see what we're working on today." The excitement is so contagious. It's extremely fun. Same thing with our grade level data retreats. The first time we did it was, oh my goodness, what are we doing here? Do we have to come? Are you sure we must come? And this year, again, for the first time, I had one grade level come the very first week of school asking, when do we get to schedule that day? Can we schedule it now? And so the whole motivation or the momentum has shifted. So it's extremely fun. So I hope you get a chance to come on over and view that in action. I wanted you to hear about math and reading from the practitioners, from both Connie Nelson and Brett Ruff, because they're the ones who are in the field and they're the ones doing that. And again, it's so valuable for you to see their enthusiasm. With our climate goal, again, our goal is the same. All students and staff promote a respectful, safe, and welcoming environment. Our goals were we wanted to have our conference attendance at or above 95%. The next one should read 85%. 85% of our parents will agree that they're informed about their child's progress. 85% of the students will demonstrate positive character traits. 90% of the staff will agree that they are supportive of their colleagues. And 95% of the staff will agree that they contribute to a positive climate. Results. The first one there is the only one that we fell short on. Rather than 95%, we were at 94% of our families that attended conferences. Otherwise, we had 95% of the parents that felt they were informed of their child's progress. 89% of the students that demonstrated positive character traits. 98% of the staff agreed that they're supportive of their colleagues, and 100% of the staff agreed that they contribute to a positive climate. We're going to continue with the same goals for this school year. And our action plan, one of the first ones we have on here is we have a real need to research and implement our bullying program, and that's not because of the behaviors in a building, but that's the direction that's coming down from the state is really pushing that, which I don't blame them. So we need to get that implemented, especially to help with recess behaviors. We support our character traits every single morning. On morning announcements, we highlight a character trait of the week and then give students some examples of how they would demonstrate that character trait. For example, we do sportsmanship, we do citizenship, we do respect, responsibility, kindness, caring, things of that nature, and then give them examples of how they would show that. We're going to continue the DARE program with our 5th grade students. That's been extremely positive. We have already had our kindness retreat with our 4th grade students. We decided to revamp our Thrilling Thursday breakfast. Normally we had parents come in for breakfast with their students, then they would stay for a speaker, and then they'd go to the classroom. And we found that our numbers were dwindling. So it was time to make a change. So we surveyed parents and basically asking parents, what do you want? What's positive about Thrilling Thursday breakfast? What would you like to see changed? And a big change that we found was parents didn't have the time to sit and listen to a speaker. What they wanted to do was come in and spend time with their child eating breakfast, and they wanted to find out what was going in the classroom. So we revamped that, so we gave them what they want. They come in, they have breakfast, and we did revamp the breakfast too, because our breakfast was a little on the scant side. So we beefed that one up, and they had breakfast. I give a little welcome and introduce all the teachers, and then the parents go down to the classroom with their child. So we surveyed the parents, and we surveyed the parents again, and hopefully we'll have the results back on that. But from some of the comments I've heard from parents, they've really appreciated the change. So, and our attendance has gone up immensely. Thank goodness we put that new parking lot in because we've got room for them now. Buster Appreciation Breakfast. I appreciate the fact that some of you were at the breakfast last on October the 28th. That's gone over very well. Again, it's one little thing that makes a big difference for our bus drivers. One way we can just say thank you for getting our kids to school and home safely every single day. We've got a great bus company, and it's nice to be able to say thank you to them. We developed new conference reports last year, and we are continuing with those this year. We have developed a new report card in hopes of giving parents more information about their child and how their child is progressing. One of the things that we noticed that was missing was the whole communication tool with our staff, and I think we've got just about to where we want it. We've got our leadership team, which is our teaching and learning committee. We meet and then 2 days later, we have a grade level team meeting. So there's a representative from each grade level team that's on the teaching and learning committee that conveys all that information to the rest of their team at that time. And we also have a grade level rep on our intervention team. And again, they bring the information to the grade level team. So hopefully we've got the communication running quite well. And then from the grade level team meetings, they can bring things back to the teaching and learning committee. Responsive classroom, we have started to, we've trained 3 people thus far. We have 1 person in our building who's already trained in responsive classroom. I think it's an excellent program. I too have been through the training. It is incredible. So it would be nice if we could have everyone trained. It's about $695 per person, and that's why we can't just take and train the whole entire staff at the one fell swoop. Even though that would be nice, it's not reasonable. Thanks to Jeff Peschka, we've got the Corwin Cronenberg training coming up actually later on this month, which will hopefully help us focus in on some positive behavior strategies. So we're very grateful to him for setting that up. Just a couple of snapshots on our demographics. If you notice with this one, this outlines our free and reduced price lunch students. The green part indicates the students that do qualify. This graph indicates our number of students that qualify for special education services. Again, the green little segment there indicates the students who qualify. Bottom line, we've got 33% of our students that qualify for free and reduced lunch. We have 11% of our students that qualify for special needs services, and yet our students are still able to be successful. We talk at many of our data retreats about the fact that our kids are outperforming where they should be performing. When you look at that 5th grade graph and you see that one student that didn't meet standards for 5th grade, and then you dig a little further and you realize how many gains that child has made. That child has no business making the gains he's making, and yet he is. And I just really wanted to point that out, that this is where we're at, and yet our kids can be successful. We just believe that with our great students we have, the involved parents, and the dedicated teachers we have, those factors are more important than our socioeconomic status and the special needs status of our students. We'd like to make sure that we don't let those perceived barriers prevent our students from being successful. All of our students deserve high standards and high expectations. If we expect a lot from our students, they will give it to us, and they've proved that over and over again. Heard from Todd Whitaker, and was at a training with him about 5 weeks ago, and some of the things that he pointed out are really things that we embrace. He talked about raise the praise, minimize the criticize. In other words, stop and praise people more rather than you criticize people. Make every decision based on our best people. Why make rules and all your decisions based on the student that doesn't want to follow rules? Why not make your decisions based on your honor students, your top of the line students? Because if you've noticed in the graphs, we've got so many more students who are exceeding standards. Why not make rules based upon them and decisions based on them? And of course, teaching is a profession that makes all other professions possible. And he talked a lot about treat all people as if they're good. And we do have many good people, so why not treat them that way? The more a child feels valued, the better their values will be. And that's what we continue teaching them about character traits. And bottom line, we believe in the children of Northfield, and we thank their parents for partnering with us to educate the students. Together we can, and we have, performed miracles. Questions that you may have?
Thanks, Nancy. Anybody have questions for Nancy?
Yes, ma'am.
When you talked about conference reports and report cards, are you changing those just for Bridgewater, or will they be
District-wide.
all? Okay.
Yeah, district-wide. We try to make sure we have consistency there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ames Web and the other smart.
Oh,
What those two after that.
stimulating maturity through accelerated readiness training.
Okay, and that's what was in here.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the Ames Web?
Ames Web is basically the progress monitoring tool. We assess our students in kindergarten, first, and second grade on the DIBELS, which is the dynamic indicators of basic early literacy skills. And basically, in a nutshell, it's a reading assessment.
Yep.
And it will tell if they have the early literacy skills in order to make appropriate gains on that. And what we find is that we don't have a universal screener for math. And so we would like to use that one as a universal screener for math in kindergarten, first and possibly second grade. And then our fourth grade wants to use it for progress monitoring tools. So basically uses as a formative assessment to assess students maybe weekly, especially the students who are struggling, assess them weekly to find out are they making the gains based on what we're teaching them.
That's the answer.
Correct.
And is that something that you can conform to what your curriculum is at the moment, or is that?
It will. It will. There are different areas that you can use it for assessing the students. You can use it for reading, but then there's a vast array of assessments that are used in reading. And then math, there again, you get your different ones in computation, problem solving, geometry, things of that nature. So and that's again, it's something that we will be using. We haven't used it thus far. We've used the DIBELS, but we haven't used the Ames Web yet.
I have a more general question about the responsive classroom training, and
Yes.
Mike was kind of interested in this too. So we've been hearing a little bit about this, and we know that we kind of train a few teachers at a time. Where are we with district-wide of teachers who have been trained in responsive classroom?
Like Scott says, the bulk of his building is trained except for the specials and special ed, ESL, I imagine. And we're just, like I said, we've got now four of our staff members, well, 5 including myself, but that doesn't really count. So basically 4 of our staff that are trained.
Mm-hmm.
So we're a long way. And Greenville Park, I'm not certain.
For responsive classroom?
Yes.
I believe all of my new teachers are trained and spent down the budget also last summer, depending on the people who were interested in going. So, and then 2 summers before that also. So we've got most of those people trained who are new to the district, and now we're looking at people who have been in the district.
Great. Jeff?
Just out of curiosity, you mentioned obviously public school. We're all over the map on socioeconomic backgrounds. What would be an example of what you think joins children together in learning effort and divides children in that respect?
Again, I think high expectations is one of them, and then support they get. Really, the research shows it really takes one adult to connect with a child. It would make the difference between them being successful and not successful. So, a lot of it is, belonging, that sense of belonging, and knowing that other people believe that they can achieve. And all along, they talk about all the risk factors. If you're on welfare, if you're a child of color, this, that, and the other, you're bound to be a failure. Well, if that's the case, I guess I'm a good failure.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, the district and Greenville Park AYP improvement plan.
Hopefully, Nancy's whacking that one and getting ready for the next piece. I hope that you noticed and continue to notice and will notice over the next 2 presentations, the next 2 months of presentation, the quality of these presentations. The data that's there, the information that's available, that teachers are now using, the viewpoint, the data retreats, the real focus in terms of SMART goals, the focus in terms of really targeting and thinking about how do we do a better job of working with every child. I think those of you that have been on the board several years, watching that process in terms of the school improvement planning change and modify over the last few years, it's pretty amazing. And I think you've seen 2 really good examples tonight. I think you'll see similar examples over the next 2 months as we complete all of the presentations for all of the different buildings. It is really something that I think, as Nancy pointed out, people I think have really embraced. They've embraced PLCs, they've embraced data retreats, they've embraced using viewpoint, they've embraced all of the pieces that we think have the potential to really change the way we're able to meet the needs of every child. What I want to talk about tonight is the district level improvement plan, and also will provide the same kind of glimpse into the overview of Greenville Park. You'll also get a much more detailed presentation on Greenville Park. later this year when they come in and do their SIP report. But because we're required and have to have to the state by Wednesday, both the district improvement plan and the Greenville Park improvement plan, we're going to try to do those pieces tonight. All right, let's take a look quickly. And again, I'm watching. Noel, eyes have glazed over. Close? All right, okay, we're okay. But give me the high sign when you just say, hey, stop. Okay.
I didn't realize that. This much responsibility on this school
board.
Well,
there's a huge amount of data that you're receiving tonight, and although we've had a couple of meetings that have not been quite as rigorous in time, the next several are not going to be that way. So if we take a look at what the district level improvement plan is, basically every district that is Title I is required to be involved in terms of review for adequate yearly progress. Title I districts like Northfield that have been unable to make adequate yearly progress with one or more subgroups for 2 or more consecutive years end up being in an improvement plan situation. The same situation that occurs with Greenville Park. And as such, we're involved in addressing 8 different elements. And if you take a look at those elements, it's, again, the ensuring that every student is going to be proficient in core academic subjects by 2013-14. 100% of the children at every grade level tested. Establish annual measurable objectives. Incorporate scientifically based research strategies. Ensure professional development. Address the fundamental teaching and learning needs of the district. Promote effective parent involvement. Incorporate extended day, extended year activities, and outline the responsibilities of the school, local ed agency, etc. So this is the effort that we are involved in. What you'll notice as you read through the documents, and Carrie was indicating that she had plenty of time and fun today getting a chance to read through all of those page by page. What you'll notice is, and I guess I would describe it as the Department of Redundancy. Because what you end up doing in a document that is 55 or 60 pages long is you restate the same thing about 4 different times. But there's some key pieces in it, and we'll try to kind of hit those quickly. First of all, we have to review district demographics. We've got about 26,000 residents in this district, about 3,900 pupils. We're located in 3 different counties. We've got a mix of rural, small town, and city neighborhoods. We have a growing Hispanic population. We've grown from 3 to 18% of our population is Hispanic, with more than 679 members that are Hispanic in 2009-10. We have a growing limited English proficiency. We've gone from 100 to 325 between 98 and today. And about 95% of those individuals are Hispanic. While our total number of LEP students continues to grow, the instructional needs have also been increased dramatically in terms of their needs. We have about 12% of our students who receive special ed services, very much like what you heard from both from Nancy and you'll hear again from other buildings about the number of our students that are in our special ed programs. Again, while the number of special ed students has increased only slightly, and we're very much in where the state average is for special ed students, the number of preschool students and the number of K-12 students who have emotional, autism spectrum, and ADHD needs have increased dramatically over the last couple of years. Our average number of free and reduced price lunch students stands at 23%, but there's a significant differential. 38% of the students at Greenville Park are on free and reduced lunch. Sibley has about 13%. As a district, we've outperformed the state and the nation in every single assessment that we can have. MCA testing, MAP testing, Explore testing, Plan testing, ACT, the American College Test, where we're basically almost 3 full points above the state average, which is the highest in the nation. And we outperform the state in terms of our AP performance, the number of kids getting 3s, 4s, and 5s on AP tests. At the same time, as you all know, and many of you have lived through this as board members, we've gone through 14% budget cuts over the last 6 years, and we're poised for the next round going forward in terms of what we expect to be a difficult situation as we have to address a $6 billion shortfall. We have 4 specific subgroups that have been identified as not making AYP for 2 or more years. Those groups are Hispanic reading, limited English proficiency reading, limited or free and reduced price lunch reading, and special education mathematics. If a student is a limited English proficient student, there's an 84% probability that they're also an Hispanic subgroup. There's a 36% probability that they're also in the free and reduced lunch subgroup. So you're kind of getting the message that what ends up happening is that there's a significant amount of overlap. The student is in special ed. There also is a 27% possible probability that they're also in free and reduced lunch subgroups. So the thing that we have as we look at 4 different subgroups is the fact that many of the kids are the same kids, but they're counted up to 4 times if they happen to be in all 4 subgroups. We've done a needs assessment. We've reviewed MCA and math testing. We've done a district staff needs assessment to look at what they see as the needs of students and the current status of staff development, etc. Those results indicate that we need to continue to implement research-based strategies for Latino and LEP students. We need to develop methods so we can understand and support expectations in terms of students and their families. We need to learn and apply best practices in terms of meeting those needs. And we need to align math curriculum with learning levels. We also have to apply methods of best practice, supporting special education students, aligning reading and math curriculum, analyzing data to identify strengths and gaps in student learning, and engaging in professional learning communities to evaluate and improve instructional quality. Well, what happened in last year's work? Well, basically, there were some dramatic improvements. We reduced the number of subgroups not making AYP by 42%, with the middle school going from 6 subgroups not making AYP down to just 2, and Greenville Park going from 3 subgroups not making AYP down to just 1. So that's phenomenal growth in terms of effort. We also reduced the district students performing below grade level, and at this point we only have 3% of our students really showing low growth. We've also increased the number in subgroups making AYP in LEP students in reading, FRP, free and reduced price lunch students in math and reading, and SPED students in reading. But despite everything we've done with those, we still have district level LEP, Hispanic, FRP reading, and SPED and math subgroups who failed to reach AYP. Greenville Park, a Title I school, did not make AYP with their free and reduced price subgroup only. And Bridgewater, Title I school, did not make AYP with the SPED subgroup. These are the 2 schools that then are impacted and have the potential to be impacted as the district's impacted by the requirements to do a school level plan while the district does a district level plan. Our non-Title I Sibley, middle school and ALC didn't make AYP, but they received no sanctions because they're not Title I schools and are not eligible for Title I funding. So what are the challenges that we're facing? Well, we've got, as I've indicated, tremendous overlapping between special education, Latino, LEP, and FRP subgroups. We've got immigration and economic issues. We've got the lack of research-based reading and math materials, although the amount of materials now is growing that we have available. We have a lack of research-based professional development. We have a growth of Hispanic, LEP, and FRP population. Prior to 2009-10, we didn't have the fully implemented PLC structure. That's changing dramatically. We have a lack of focus. I may quit right here because I think I'm going to cough you to death. But we have lack of focus on subgroups failing to make AYP prior to 2009-10. That's really changed again with the Viewpoint programming available, the PLCs available, the flex groups available, all the things we've talked about tonight and you've heard from Scott and Nancy. We've also lack of fully implemented systemic interventions and a need for formative assessments, again, Ames Webb, Dibbles, other strategies to not only measure kids at the end with MAP testing or the end with MCAs, but all the way through the process to see how they're doing so that you can modify the grouping and put them in at their instructional level. And the key message that you heard from Nancy and Scott tonight is about the idea that kids learn best when they learn at their instructional level. And the more we can break up kids into groups so that they're being instructed at that level, the more powerful the instruction and the better they learn. So in terms of setting targets for subgroups, well, we have Hispanic reading is the first. We have to have an annual increase of 14% to attain 100% proficiency by 2014. That seems like a daunting number. What it means is 29 students per year, or about 4 students per grade level tested. 4 students per grade level tested is probably doable. But again, it's going to be an uphill effort. LEP, basically we have to have an annual increase of about 17% to reach 100% proficiency. Again, about 25 students per year, 4 students per grade level. FRP, an annual increase of about 11% to reach 100%, about 27 students per year, 4 students per grade level. And in special ed, an annual increase of 16% to attain 100%, about 39 students per year, about 6 students per tested grade level. So how will we track progress? Site improvement plan, just what you heard tonight. Staff development plans, professional learning communities. Again, 1 hour per week embedded and PLC SMART goals for every single PLC that's operating in the district. Fall spring map testing and MCA correlation. DRA, DIBBLS, wireless generation, oral IPT, explore plan ACT. All of those give us the ability to track those goals. Classroom assessments. So as we implement scientifically based strategies, we will continue to do several of the pieces we've done up to this point. We're going to continue to use SIOP, Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol, to help staff members as they work with how do you support LEP students and Hispanic students in classrooms so that they gain the same kinds of skills that their non-LEP students gain. Clustering of English language learners, co-teaching with both regular and ESL teachers, differentiated instruction, the whole key to flexible grouping, because in flexible grouping, then you differentiate the instruction to meet the level of students' performance. Formative evaluation of academic progress, wireless generation. Again, the difference between DIBBLS and Ames Webb is that wireless generation is really the electronic strategy to be able to gather that data quickly and to put it in place. And Dave will talk about that a lot more when he does his presentation on his SIP plan. Also, in terms of that implementation of scientifically based instructional strategies, the professional learning community's key issue there. We've used and talked about and shared with you information about Read 180, a powerful strategy for supporting kids who are struggling to read. The SMART curriculum we've talked about tonight. ESL Kindergarten, new program this year, which is really focused and placed ESL kindergartners together and really focused on teaching both literacy in their native language in Spanish as well as in English. Responsive classroom, strategy for making sure that the right behaviors are occurring and the right support is occurring in the classroom so that kids can learn. Tackling obstacles and raising college hopes, the TORCH program. Again, you've seen the powerful results of that in terms of going from about 30-some% graduation rate for Hispanic students to over 90%. Professional development implementation is another key piece. Building in district staff development, the professional learning communities, again, SIOP, differentiated instruction, formative assessments, resource review of both at-risk reading and math programming, and Read 180 training and implementation so that we can really implement that across the programs at middle school, high school, and Greenville Park. We're also looking at how we can implement that in the other 2 buildings. Again, as we've kind of talked about, responsive classroom, an expensive program, but one that we know has scientifically based results. Also, we have to focus on parent involvement. Open houses, parent-teacher conferences continue to be a key way we do that. As you heard tonight, some new strategies for how to present that information, how to give teachers new tools to share with parents what's going on in the classroom, what's going on with their students. The Family Project, Targeted Support and Cultural Competency. Lots of work that we did last year in terms of pilot with Greenville Park, which the overflow of that now is the dance that we talked about at the beginning of the night tonight. Also, cultural competency instruction to help make sure that our teachers are comfortable and understand the cultures that they're working with. Translated documents and forms and interpreters, and not only being able to use all of that work, but also using speech gear technology that allows us to, on the fly, translate documents, translate parents who need to come in and have one-to-one conversations with teachers on the fly, being able to translate from English to Spanish and Spanish to English. PTOs and PACs, a significant amount of increased electronic communication. I think almost all of you that have kids in school are seeing much more information coming to you through electronic newsletters, electronic information from building principals and from individual teachers, teachers' websites. Also the new SkyAlert system, which has allowed us to address and provide information when we need in real time to get information out to folks fast. Special Education Parent and Family Training grant, where we're actually working with PACER to help our special education students and their parents to be more effective in terms of working with teachers in terms of programming. We also have worked and are continuing to work and expand our volunteer coordinator program, additional bilingual ELL educational assistance, clustering case managers with grades and teams, parents meeting parents, and also parenting programs focused on Latino and special education parents. We also have worked on incorporating the extended day. And if you haven't figured this out now, I'm going through the 8 different things. So just to come back, I didn't mention that, but I figured you are a good group and you would get that right away. If we think about what's happening here, we have collaborative efforts between Community Services and Northfield Public Schools. We have homework help program with Carleton St. Olaf, mentoring programs pairing at-risk students with caring adults, and again, that's a powerful, strong program. Again, referencing what we heard tonight about the power of having a child connect with even one adult who cares about how they're doing. After School Plus program, including enrichment and remedial reading and math programming. Moving on to Summer Plus program, where we had, I believe, Hannah, about 240?
289.
Okay, 289 students involved in summer programming, supporting both remedial activities and enrichment activities. Train teachers for remedial instruction in terms of academic preparation, additional training in behavior management, cultural competency, and team building. And then we needed to create action plans, which is the last piece of the documentation. That includes math curricular materials review, adoption of resources, training implementation for formative assessment, differentiated instruction, and you heard a lot about kind of how that's moving forward. We aren't able to make everybody, experts in terms of differentiated instruction on the first day, but we're making some real inroads at multiple levels. We have training and implementation of 7 strategies of assessment for learning. We also have PLC team training, identification of specific academic needs, and implementation of strategies. So again, what PLCs are doing is they're taking the data they have. They're taking a look at how are kids performing. They're thinking about how they can differentiate and group students. They are then able to say, what's the right instructional strategy to meet the needs of the kids in this group? And then let's try that. It may not work. It may be only partially successful. But we're saying to people, take those risks, do the right things, and then feel comfortable modifying and adjusting. And because you're meeting every week, you don't go on doing the same thing that isn't working for 6 months. You do the same thing that isn't working for a week, and then you come back and talk about how you do it better. Also, staff development with SIOP, co-teaching, and push-in model. Data analysis at grade level, at each grade level. Formative assessments in terms of training, Read 180 implementation, district and site-generated staff development on research-based strategies. All of those pieces helping to support our Latino LEP FRP students. We also, the full implementation of PLCs, identifying and addressing specific needs of Latinos, LEP, and FRP, receiving ongoing training and research-based PLC process. Again, our curriculum folks have really taken that on and really supported each of the buildings in terms of that training, and have basically stepped in and through the district staff development and curriculum advisory committee, they've been able to come in and actually work with each building to keep everybody moving forward. We've also implemented differentiated instruction. We've also worked hard on parent inclusion, and especially with our parent project. We've also looked at parent-teacher conferences for subgroups, parents advocating for student success, parent communication in both English and Spanish, PTO and PAC meetings, and maintaining of additional EFL licensed teachers. Again, as you know, we've hired additional folks over the last few years, and again, we've been able to hold those numbers over the last few years. Questions?
Anybody have questions for Dr. Richardson? Mike?
No.
Go ahead.
So when we talked about meeting targets and the improvement on meeting target, can you remind us, I think, and Noel tends to point out, that the target moves?
Yes. One of the most important things that the board members and committee members need to remember is that the targets increase every year. So again, if everybody's going to get to if every child in every school district across the country has to be at a proficiency level by 2013-14, that means the target needs to grow about 4% per year from now until 2013-14, because we're at about 87%. By 2013-14, we have to be at 100%. So not only are we trying to do better than we did the year before, but we have to do enough better to meet the changing target. It is a moving target every school year.
And so I know that the No Child Left Behind Act, when is that? Do you remember? When is that?
Last year. Last year. What we anticipate is that will be taken up in the Congress after they come back into session this winter. If you remember, at this point, John Klein, representative for our district, actually will be the chair of the Education, Health, and Human Services Committee. I and a number of superintendents in this area have met with Representative Klein probably a half a dozen times in the last year, sharing specific concerns about No Child Left Behind and the changes that we feel need to be made. And at this point, a lot of the initial discussion we've had has been very positive. And it's really focused on a couple of things. It's focused on we need to get rid of kind of the inappropriate kinds of sanctions that don't make sense when you have some groups that by other federal law, in order to even be identified as a subgroup, you can't be making the proficiency level. In other words, if you're a special education student, basically by statute, for most special ed students, they must be 2 or more years below grade level. Well, you can't be 2 or more years below grade level and be at proficiency at the same time. So you have a federal law IDEA in conflict with No Child Left Behind. You also have, as part of this law, basically a requirement that all of our ESL students, all of our LEP students, must be proficient in English within a year after entering schools in the United States. Every piece of research we have tells us that it takes 5 to 7 years for a student practicing English to become proficient at grade level. And so, again, the expectation is to do something that we think is not reasonable. So we're asking, and I think Klein is very willing to take a look at modifications there. Probably the other major issue that we have and we've talked about is the funding for No Child Left Behind, which is not kept up with the costs of the program. And at the same time, a program that was started 40 years ago, PL
192.
help me,
192.
94-142, which is the special education law, which 40 years ago said we will pay 40% of the excess cost of special education. Currently, they're paying about 17% of the excess cost. And if we would look at moving to the 40% figure, most of the budget deficits that school districts would have would be significantly diminished. Because right now what we're having to do is do what's called cross-subsidization. We have to take money out of the general fund budget, put it over in special education to fund the excess cost of special education. So I think there's some real interest in trying to work with that. Obviously, as we go through the process, we have a House that's with one party, a Senate that's with the other, and we have individuals that have a lot of stake in terms of maintaining No Child Left Behind as it is, as well as a lot of people who'd like to see it modified. So that was probably the $3.50 answer to your Billy Cent question. So all of those are big issues, but our sense is that they're going to try to wrestle and address this beginning this winter. And our hope is that Representative Klein will continue to be open to listening to superintendents and school districts about this, as he has been over the last year.
One last thing, sorry, is you talk a little bit of things that are when we report and to the community and to the federal government on our status and progress, the kind of specific things and subgroups, the kind of discussion, why do we talk about subgroups and how is that required? Because I'll tell you why, that someone in the last couple of weeks suggested that we were blaming the students by talking about it. That somehow by identifying that what pieces of us were, why do we even talk about it? It felt like we were blaming them. I tried to address that, but I think if one person felt that, maybe others are feeling the same.
Well, and I've heard that same comment from several people, and I've tried to respond to them in writing whenever I got an email comment or whatever from people. What folks need to understand is that the subgroups are identified by the federal government. And those include every one of the ethnic or cultural groups, along with limited English proficient students, along with special education students and free and reduced price lunch students. And so we have to report out the performance of each of those subgroups. And if just one of those subgroups is not able to make adequate yearly progress, then an entire building goes into needs improvement, or an entire district can go into needs improvement. And so this is not about blaming kids, and you know, that has never been something that as a school district we have any desire to do. But we also are required by federal mandate through No Child Left Behind to basically be able to describe specifically what groups are not making AYP, and specifically the work that we're doing to try to support those students so that they can in the future.
Somebody down here have a question? Julie.
Hi, Julie.
I just had a real quick question about Read 180, because
Yes.
I know we had great success at the high school and the middle school, and I thought I recall that we piloted at Greenville Park, and I just wondered how that pilot program went with Read 180 at Greenville, and if it's being expanded at all.
It's actually had quite a bit of success, and I'll tell you in two ways. There's the quantitative success that I can tell you, the large percentage of students, these are our at-risk readers, okay? So in the program they measure growth using the computer and then the teacher meeting with students and so forth. And while a child reads aloud and hears the material on the computer, it measures their growth. And it measures it in lexiles, and that's just one of the measuring sticks that they use. And all of our students except for two made growth. And then, as you recall, I was talking once before about
our students in reading making more than a year's growth. So they're quantitatively, yes, very, very successful. But the most impressive part for me is the qualitative information that I have on that, and that is each time I visit the room, and the two teachers will tell you, Robert Garcia and Abby Swanson, that students in that program who've never felt successful in reading feel successful in reading. And you hear things like, I can do this. I achieved my goal, because it's all very goal setting. And I've never been able to do this before, and now I can do it, or I'm successful, and this sort of thing. So the data in both areas, quantitative and qualitative, is very, very good. Very, very good. So, that out?
Thank you. Ellen? A couple questions. So one of my questions is, in DPAC last year, one of the assessment goals was to better communicate academic standards and provide resources to accelerate growth to the people that are helping outside of the school day. And I know that in the district plan and in Greenbelt's plan, and I know Nancy mentioned it in some of their goals, that with this homework help and the PLUS program. And I'm curious as to what we're doing different now to make sure that some of the students that are helping and the people that are coming in have the additional resources to guide the kids.
I don't know if either of you guys want to talk about that specifically. I think maybe they could give you the specifics in the building.
Specifically with homework help, we have actually a licensed retired teacher who is providing the homework help assistance. So that's extremely valuable in that you've got someone who is qualified to teach that is actually instructing those students. It's a lot of reteaching, or maybe even teaching for the first time for some of those students that really need that emphasis. So that's a major improvement for us.
Chris, I can address the PLUS question.
Sure, if you would, please.
Is it on? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the big improvement we've made in the PLUS program, which is the collaboration between community services, grant-funded enrichment programming, and community connections and targeted services, is that through the leadership of Pat Parlin and other teachers who've been involved in the program for a long time, we've really each year tried to get better and better in terms of the continuous learning plans that the students have, and have the teachers assist in the planning both of what goes on in the academic days, whether it's the opposite days during the school year or the half days during the summer, making that connection much clearer with their learning plans, but then also having the teachers be involved with the site leaders in the planning of the enrichment activities. So there is truly now, we can say there's a connection between what they're learning in the academic program and what they're learning in the enrichment.
So one of the things I noticed in last year's plan and then this year's plan again was the special ed math curriculum and the concern that it wasn't scientifically based and that we're still reviewing. I was just, because it showed up last year and it's also in this year's, when, is there a timeline for kind of
and actually I wish Gary was here to be able to kind of give you a little more frame there, but they've been actually looking at and reviewing both the reading and the math curriculum. And my sense is that before the end of this year, they will have identified resources in special education, both in reading and mathematics, that they will be looking at. Because I think what you're finding from the special ed perspective is they're finding that in many cases the current, especially the current math curriculum, is not really meeting the needs of the special education students. The structure and the spiraling strategy there, while it works pretty well for students who are fairly proficient in math, is very, very difficult for students who are struggling. So what they're really trying to do is to review and identify the best materials there that address the students' learning styles as special education students, and then looking at purchasing those materials so that special ed teachers will be able to work with them. The other piece that's going to come with that will be, again, as we look at the differentiation that will occur in the regular classroom, that because they're breaking kids into the quadrants for various topics, they have the ability to really, even with special ed students who are spending time in the regular classroom, they actually are moving them based on a particular concept into a level where they're closer to their instructional level all the time. That's a really powerful piece about this differentiation of instruction and the flexible groupings is that instead of, and I'm a product of, being, the bluebirds and the blackbirds and the crows. I think I was a crow in elementary school. And once you were there, it was kind of an act of God to move you from that group to another group. This is very, very different in terms of how, how agile and how adept. Now, it isn't easy, and I think that's what you heard tonight from our building principals and teaching staff, is this is more difficult because now you're trying to regroup and reset, groups on a fairly regular basis, sometimes as quickly as a single unit, which may be a couple of weeks. But the power of teaching kids at their instructional level really makes a huge difference, and that's really where we're headed. And we think that that's going to have an impact not only on the best of our students, who will be able to get programming at the highest level and really stress themselves, but also for the kids that are having the greatest difficulties so that they're also learning at their instructional level.
Anyone else? All right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Kraft.
And the alertness scenario
I told Dave, not this time, he's going to come
he
back.
doesn't. Oh, okay.
And hit you later, because
Okay.
the information that you got tonight
Yeah.
really frames both pieces.
Okay.
Dave has one of the subgroups of the same programming that we're dealing with at the district level. He'll come back and give you the specific SIP report. Dave, when are you on? Next time or in December? 2 weeks from now. So,
Okay.
so stay tuned. I'm looking at the time.
Yeah, I was thinking it would.
I'm looking at Noel.
The alertness canary is still chirping.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Yes. You haven't been in the mine too long.
Not too long.
Okay, we have a few items for individual action. First up is the resolutions canvassing the November elections, and I just want to remind you that we have the final abstract and return of votes counts in the table file. So those X's were replaced with the actual numbers there for the total of 14,073 votes cast. So I'd ask for a motion to approve the adoption of the resolutions canvassing returns of votes in the school district's general and special elections as presented.
Motion.
Moved by Jeff. Is there a second? Second. Second by Julie. And then needs to be a roll call, right, Janelle?
Riddleson?
Aye.
Maple?
Aye.
Iverson?
Aye.
Pritchard?
Aye.
Cornell?
Aye.
Stratton?
Aye.
And Nelson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And then we also need to adopt the resolutions authorizing the issuance of certificates of election and directing the school district clerk to perform other election-related duties as presented. Is there a motion for that? Moved by Ann. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ellen. Also roll call.
Riddleson?
Aye.
Maple? Aye. Iverson?
Aye.
Pritchard?
Aye.
Cornell?
Aye.
Stratton?
Aye.
And Nelson?
Aye. Okay, it's American Education Week next week. Whereas public schools are the backbone of our democracy, providing young people with the tools they need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality. And whereas by equipping young Americans with both practical skills and broader intellectual abilities, schools give them hope for and access to a productive future. And whereas education employees, be they custodians or teachers, bus drivers, or librarians, education employees work tirelessly to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism. And whereas schools are community linchpins, bringing together adults and children, educators and volunteers, business leaders and elected officials in a common enterprise, now therefore the Board of Education of the Public Schools do hereby proclaim November 14th to the 20th as the 89th Annual Observance of American Education Week. And I'd ask for a motion to approve that proclamation.
Move it.
Moved by Noel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ellen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The proclamation is approved, and the Retired Educators Lunch was today, and Staff Appreciation Breakfast is coming up on November 24th. an event that is co-sponsored by the Northfield Education Association, and we'll hear the presentation of the NEA Friend of Education and the Teacher of Year Awards, and also present awards for years of continuous service in the district. It's always kind of a fun event. You get to see our administrators in aprons serving breakfast.
No hairnets.
No hairnets.
Okay, aprons maybe.
Aprons, yeah. And then also in the table file, we'd like to proclaim National Community Education Day. Whereas there's an increasing public insistence that all levels of government become more responsive to citizen needs and desires. And whereas there's a limited amount of tax money and other resources, both human and physical, available to meet public demand for facilities, programs, and services. And whereas full use of existing public facilities, programs, and services is a desirable community goal. And community education philosophy advocates the full use of public facilities, programs, and services by every age group in the community. And whereas community education philosophy assumes that when local communities identify their own needs and resources and public agencies work cooperatively, community betterment will result. And whereas agency coordination and cooperation improve public service and maximize the use of tax money, and the involvement of local communities is essential to the development of community education programs. And whereas November 16th, 2010 has been designated National Community Education Day, and the theme of National Community Education Day in 2010 is Community Education Looking Forward. Now therefore, the Northfield School Board does hereby proclaim November 16th, 2010 as National Community Education Day and call upon the Northfield School District to recognize and participate in this special observance. And I would ask for approval of that proclamation. Motion by Jeff. Is there a second? Second. Second by Ann. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. We have that proclamation. Exciting time for education. Okay, we've got the consent grouping, and note that the district and Greenville Park AYP improvement plans need to be approved as part of that consent grouping. Anything anybody wants to pull from the consent grouping? Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent grouping? So moved. Moved by Julie. Is there a second? Second. Second by Ellen. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent grouping, say aye. 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 Opposed, say no. That motion carries. We've got the enrollment report for November 1st and the enrollment options report, which is interesting. Probably you want to just run through that?
Just very quickly, while the data in the first two pages gives you every individual school district where students are either coming from or going to, as well as the charter schools and the non-publics. The information that's shared on the next spreadsheet page, I think, is probably the easiest to kind of look at in terms of the big picture views. What I think it shows you is in terms of open enrollment, non-resident student transfers, we still have about 1.6 kids coming into the district through open enrollment and non-resident student transfers for every student that leaves. However, we've had an increase in students going out from 157 up to 176. We've also had an increase of students coming in from 276 up to 282. And we have 30 different public schools that kids are either coming into our district or leaving our district to attend. Charter schools, we are now at 4 charter schools that we're sending students to. That enrollment is up slightly, and if you'll notice, the enrollment is mainly coming from Prairie Creek in terms of we are sending more students to Prairie Creek than we have in past years. And again, that's because they increased their enrollment to 180, and I think what's happened is that over this last year, although their total enrollment is stable at 180, what this would show is that a bigger proportion of the total student population is coming from our district than from the past. In terms of non-publics, we're basically even at 231, and again, we're going to have kids going to 25 different non-public schools. And then homeschool population actually dropped slightly. We're down about 5 from last year, from 128 down to 23, and down from 61 different families who are homeschooling down to 53. So I think this gives you maybe kind of the better snapshot of that piece, but if you want to delve into the detail of every single school where we're sending kids or every single school where kids are coming to us, that information is available on the first two sheets.
Any questions? Actually, a couple.
Okay.
Do we know what's going on with Faribault? Do we know what grades those students are that are going out to Faribault? Is that on overall numbers? We still bring in.
I don't have that without. We absolutely could find it out, but
Just sort of curious if that's people are working on their children to do daycare in the town that they work in or something like that. And then what's the MTCS connections? What is that?
All right, I believe that is that's another online public school.
Oh,
Okay. As is in Minnesota Online, as in Blue Sky is actually a charter online school, but MCTS Connections, I believe, is an online public school.
All right. We also have some changes suggested to by the Minnesota School Boards Association. Changes suggested to policy 514, the bullying prohibition, and on the table file it suggests that we could approve these changes tonight. I think our practice has been to wait 2 weeks and have a little time for digestion. I think that's the better practice. So I recommend that we take this up at our next meeting for possible action. And again, these are changes suggested by the Minnesota School Boards Association directly related to the misuse of technology in the bullying context. Future meetings coming up. Second meeting in November, on November 22nd, and then just the single meeting in December on December 13th. Anything else? Ask for a motion to adjourn. So moved by Ellen. Is there a second? Second by Ann. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.